Today we're going to be making a bookmark, and to do this we're going to learn how to do a slip knot, we're going to learn how to do the chain stitch, and then the double crochet. Those are all very simple. We'll take it baby steps, one step at a time, and when you're done you'll be very proud to show off your fully crocheted bookmark. For today we need yarn, and I'm going to be using a little bit thicker yarn than I recommend for people to use, but I want to use this just for demonstration purposes so you can see the stitches better. So this is the yarn I'm using today. It's about 19 or 20 yards of the yarn you select. You need a crochet hook, you need a scissor, you'll need a needle with a large tapestry needle with a large eye, and you'll need 10 8-inch strips of that same yarn, and that's what we'll make our fringe with. You'll also need stitch markers, and we'll show you how to use those as we go along. Okay, let's get started. And let's get started with just a little bit of terminology. Because if you've never crocheted before and people start talking about tail end and a yarn over, you don't know what any of that stuff means. So we'll just start off here. The tail end of the yarn is the yarn that's the cut end. And it kind of makes sense once you know that. It's just the tail of the yarn. And then the working end is the ball end of the yarn. So we got tail end and we got working end. Now let's make a slip knot first. Every chain starts with a slip knot, and it's very easy. If you know how to do it, don't worry about it. We'll be through this section in just a minute, but I didn't know how to make a slip knot before I started crocheting, and so I'm sure some of you are in the same boat I was in. So we're going to start with our palm up and the tail end of the yarn just laying in our palm with the tail toward us, and the working end just hanging down behind. And then take your last 3 fingers, put them over to your fingers like a gun, and wrap that working end around one time so that you have 2 loops over your finger. And we're going to take that very last loop, bring it over the front loop, and then the loop that is now the back loop, we'll loop it over the front loop again and keep on going and loop it over our finger. And we have a slip knot. Let's do that again. Palm up with the tail end hanging in our palm. Working in behind. Point our finger like a gun. Take the working end, loop it one more time around so that we have 2 loops on our finger. Take the back loop, bring it over the front loop, and then take the loop that's the back end and bring it over that front loop again and over your finger. And there you go. Pull on the tail end and it tightens it up. One more time and then we'll move on. We have the tail end in our palm. Form a gun with our pointer finger. Loop over one time. Take that back loop over the front loop. Take the loop that's in the back now, take it over the front loop, and keep on going over the end of your finger. And you have a slip knot. Take your crochet hook and insert it in the slip knot and tighten up on the tail end. Now this is as good a time as any to talk about tension, because tension is going to be important and it's going to be the hardest thing for you at first. You want to maintain the proper tension, because if this working loop, wherever you are in your crochet piece, if this loop gets too tight, you can't pull yarn through here. You're going to be grabbing on to yarn and pulling yarn and this hook through a loop. And you can't do that if it's too tight. So we control the tension by our hands and we'll get to that in just a minute. How do we hold the crochet hook? I use the knife method, and in the knife method, it's just like you hold the knife and you're going to cut your meat with it. So you put your hand over the handle and use your pointer finger to control more finely where the hook goes. It's just like you're cutting your meat. And so it's easy to remember, it's the knife method. Some people prefer the pencil method, and that's just the opposite. You have your hand underneath. Remember, just like you're holding a pencil, just like you're going to write a letter. And you hold it like this with the handle actually over your hand, and you sort of manipulate that end more with the wrist. So for that reason, I prefer the knife method because I do have a little bit of arthritis and it just makes it easier for me. But it is just a matter of preference. So you do it however you like it. But you'll see me doing the knife method throughout this video. Then how would you hold your yarn? Well, this is the key to tension right here. We're going to want to use our hand to provide tension for this yarn. Otherwise, it's just a loose noodle of yarn flapping around out here. So take your palm, point your palm upward. Scoop in. Your hook and yarn is above your hand. You're going to scoop in, I should say, in between that little finger and the ring finger. And when the yarn hits your web of your fingers there, you can turn it over. And then you have all this yarn leading to the hook, and that's underneath. We'll take your pointer finger, put that underneath, and you have something that is the easiest way to control tension for me. You'll see all sorts of ways people do it. Again, palm up, scoop in, then turn your hand over, put your pointer finger underneath there, and you're ready to go. One last time. Palm up, scoop up the yarn, flip your hand over, take your pointer underneath, and turn your hand perpendicular to your work surface. I take my tall man, my longest finger, whatever you call that finger, middle finger, and I pinch with that finger, and with my thumb, I pinch the working stitch of my yarn. And that helps a little bit too. Helps me a little bit too. So now you know how to hold your yarn and hold your hook. You can go back and watch this video to refresh if this is not enough information for you. But let's move on. We're going to make a chain stitch, and we're going to make 10 of these. So in 10 stitches, we should have it down pat because this is so simple. So a chain stitch, here we go. We're going to start manipulating this hook. So you point your hook down, and this is where the thumb comes. You point it down where the pointer finger comes in handy. Then you push it back, you pull it up, and then pull toward your loop. And there you go. We've got our first stitch. You point the hook down, hook back, hook up, and pull through the loop. Down, back, up, pull through the loop. And we've got 3 stitches already. Down, back, up, pull through, 4. Down, back, up, pull through, that's 5. Hook down, push it back, pull it up, and you can pull it through for stitch 6. Down, back, up. Oop. Make sure my teardrop wasn't big enough. 7. Back, up. 8. Down, back, up. 9. Oops. Down, back, up. And 10. 10 stitches. So let's examine what these stitches look like, because you're going to need to be able to recognize them to know where to go into for your subsequent stitches. So I'm going to pull this out just so you can see a little better. Can you see that there are a whole row of V's? I call them V's. Whoop. Make sure we're holding this correctly so you can see. Here's a V here. And then below that's a V. And below that's a V. And below that's a V. A whole row of V's. Those are the stitches. Those are your chain stitches. And we should have 10 of those. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. And we do. We have 10 of them. And that's where we want to be. So we immediately go into our double crochet stitch. And to do that, we yarn over, and this is a term we haven't talked about before. To yarn over, it's a little counterintuitive. You bring your crochet hook down and back, and there the yarn is over your hook. That's why it's called yarn over. So there we yarn over, and for double crochet, for this pattern, we're going to enter the second stitch from the hook. We don't count the one on the hook. Here's one, and here's the second one. I'll go right into that second little chain stitch. And now I'm going to do yarn over again. And I'm going to pull that yarn through so that I have 3 loops on my hook. What in the world are we going to do with 3 loops? Nowhere to go from here. No, we're going to do yarn over, pull through 2 of those, yarn over, and pull through 2 of those. And we've made our very first double crochet. I'm going to start you off right here, which I didn't start off right, and I had many problems. So what we are going to do is mark the first stitch of every row, and it's going to make it so much easier for you. So we don't count the one we've got on the hook, but right under the hook, you see that V? That is our first double crochet. And I take one of my stitch markers and I slip it right in there so that I will know, and you'll see how important this is when we get to the end of that row. We get back to that marker. So I have 1 double crochet, and we need 9, don't we? So we're going to yarn over, go into the very next chain, grab hold of that yarn, pull it through. I wind up with my 3 loops. So I yarn over, pull through 2, yarn over, pull through 2. And we've done 2 double crochets. Now get ready for the third one. So we yarn over, go into the very next chain, grab my yarn, pull it through to make 3 hoops. Yarn over, pull through 2, yarn over, pull through 2. Yarn over, go into the very next chain, gather my yarn, pull it in. I got my 3 hoops. Yarn over, pull through 2. Sometimes you have to kind of wiggle it. Yarn over, pull through 2. Yarn over, go into my very next chain, pull through, so I get 3, yarn over, pull through 2, yarn over, pull through 2. Okay, for double crochet we start with a yarn over, we go into the very next chain, at least in this pattern, the very next chain, we grab our yarn, oops, okay, I yarned over, go through that chain, yarn over, pull it through. Didn't drop it this time. Go through 2. Whoops, this one's getting a little bit ornery. Yarn over and go through 2. Sometimes when you go slower, you don't have a cadence. When you go slower, it doesn't cooperate. Okay, yarn over, go through the very next chain, pull through, yarn through 2, that leaves 2, so yarn over and go through the last 2. So it looks like I have 2 more to go. Over, go through the next stitch, go through 2, yarn over and go through 2, and my last double crochet, go through 2, yarn over, go through 2. All right, let's look at what this looks like, the structure of this. We've made little legs, little posts. Pull it apart and you can see it's got a structure, it's got a post, it's got open spots between the posts. And if we count, we know this is number 1 because we put our stitch marker. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and that's exactly how many we wanted. So it's good, especially when you're first learning, and for all of us really, as we go through, to count your stitches at the end of a row. Once you get better, you can do it every few rows. Then if you make a mistake, it's very easy just to rip out part of it and start over rather than find out you've made a big mistake at the end. So at the end of the row, we're going to chain 1. And remember what we did for the chain? We went down, back, up, and pulled that yarn through the loop. And that was our chain. So we're going to turn this piece to the other side, and we're going to make our first double crochet in this row. And to do the double crochet, yarn over, we go into the very first stitch. We're no longer going to go through the second stitch. That was only for that foundation row. We gather our yarn, we pull it through till we get 3 loops, and then we pull through 2, yarn over, pull through 2. Now I've made my very first stitch, my very first double crochet stitch in this row, and I want to mark that. I follow a lady that calls this training wheels, and I love that term because this really helps you. Later on, you don't have to do this, but I find this so much easier. There's no doubt where you started and stopped, and I love to mark my rows. If you think it takes too much time, just wait till you have to rip something out because you didn't really see where the start and stop of your row was. So we've made 1 stitch there. We're going to go across the row with double crochet again. Yarn over into the next stitch, pull through. So we have our 3 loops. Pull through 2, yarn over, pull through 2. Yarn over into the next double crochet, pull through, yarn over, pull through, yarn over, pull through. Now, when you entered your chain stitch, you only had 1 piece to go through, but these are double crochets and we have the whole V to go through. So be sure when you go in there, you yarn over, you go through, that you catch both of those pieces of yarn, both of those parts of the V that are the top of the double crochet. Yarn over, pull through 2, yarn over, pull through 2. over, through, yarn over, through 2, yarn over, pull through 2, yarn over, 2 through. Now, this is a perfect example of why you wanted to have this marker here. Because you might look at this and say, I don't see where I'm going to stick. There's nothing here. There's nothing vertical or horizontal. It's all vertical. I don't see there's a stitch to be entered. But we know, because we put this in here, that there's this extra double crochet there. So you watch. It's got a kind of funny turn to it there. If I just do my double crochet into that stitch I marked, pull through, yarn over, pull through 2, yarn over, pull through 2. And now that is perfectly straight edge, and I have 9 stitches, 9 posts, 9 stitches. Let's count and just make sure. We know this is 1 because we put it in the very first stitch, so that means 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. We've done it perfectly. Let's do one more row and then move on. So we chain 1 and turn. Okay, yarn over, go into the very first double crochet, yarn over, go into the next double crochet, grab your yarn, pull through, grab your yarn, pull through 2, pull through 2. This can be very soothing once you get into the rhythm. Very, very soothing, very calming. Always going into the top of that double crochet at the previous row. Always yarn over into that double crochet, yarn over, pull through, yarn over, through 2, yarn over, through 2, yarn over into the next double crochet, yarn over, pull through, yarn over, through 2, yarn over, through 2. The reason I keep pulling on this yarn is that this is not my usual crochet setup and I'm not quite used to it. Yarn over, go through here, pull through, and yarn over and go through 2. And again, this is going to save me because I know where my last stitch is. Yarn over, go through here. You can take that stitch marker out if you want, but my stitches are loose enough so I can get my hook in even with the stitch marker, and it just makes it, to me, it makes it a little easier. Okay, we have 3 rows here, and we just keep on going the exact same way until we get approximately 7 inches in length for our bookmark. And in the interest of time, I'm going to stop here. We're still going to go ahead and practice as much as we want, but let me stop and show you how we would really finish off this bookmark. I have one prepared that just has the body, and I've gone up the 7 inches, but you have tails. If you'll notice, we have tails where we started and finished. So this is where we get our tapestry needle, and we're going to weave in what we call weave in our ends, so these don't come out, and so you don't have a knot. It's like a hidden, people think it's magic. You haven't really, they don't know how you finished off because it's just gone. So here we go with our tapestry needle. See that big eye? And I find it easy to take the tapestry needle and pull down on the yarn until it's, say, flattened out. And you can see we can thread the needle. Even this thick yarn, because I have a thicker yarn here. Even this thicker yarn. Okay. I go by the rule of 3. I go 3 different directions to weave in my ends. What we're trying to do is to get this over the time, over the years. You're going to be handling this. You might have to rinse this out. You might have to do all sorts of things with it. We don't want the yarn to come unraveled. So just like sewing, we're going to go in. Don't go across big holes, because then you'll see this yarn as you go across. But I just kind of take my tapestry needle, go in and out 3 different ways. So let's go down a ways. Then we'll go over a ways. So that's one direction. And so when you pull it tight, it might distort it. So just kind of take a little tug here. So I'm going to go across a little bit. This is the second direction. So my rule of 3, I went one direction, went down. Now I'm going to go across one direction. Oop. Now I'll just turn around and go back, but don't go back through the same stitch or you'll unravel it. Let's go in and out of some of these stitches. So I've gone 3 different ways, and so that is not going anywhere. Give it a little tug. Nobody can see that. Take my scissors, clip that off very carefully without cutting my actual stitches. And that's how we weave in the ends. And of course you would do the same thing for this end, but let's go straight to our fringe. I made 10 8-inch pieces. I'm going to take 2 of those. You decide for yourself which is the front side and which is the back side. And so I'm just going to have this for my front side. It really doesn't make too much difference on this, but on some pieces it will. Stick your yarn. We're going to have a fringe equidistant all along here. So I'm going to stick my hook through here, through one of these holes at the corner, and grab 2 of these pieces of yarn and pull them through to make a loop. My loop. Now I'll take my fingers through that loop. Should be a little bigger, I guess. And I'm going to grab those tail ends, all 4 of them. There'll be 4 little loose ends. And I'm going to pull them down. Take 2 more. Let's go to the other side. And it's easier to do it one side, the other side, one side, the other side, just to make sure you get it even. Again, I stick it through, and then I pull my yarn through to that side, so I have a loop. And then I come through the loop and grab those loose ends and pull them down. Now let's go in the middle. I think if I go to the middle, I counted these, so it's every other one. I'll be going in the middle, and then I will be going in the middle of the middle, if that makes any sense to you. I didn't get both of them. There we go. It doesn't matter if these things are a little bit off because we're going to trim them. And for my last one, go through this. Pull my yarn through. And I have my fringe. It's all ragged. We don't want it ragged. So let's go in here and cut it off. Now, isn't that cute? We have our little bookmark. Yours will look slightly different because it won't be this bulky of yarn, but it'll be just as cute and you'll be just as proud of it.